This is a guy, Bully, that we talked a lot about at the end of 2017 when it came to Wrestler of the Year and Match of the Year. And coming up Sunday, March 25th on Access TV, Strong Style Evolved. And he's going to be a huge part of it, huge part of what New Japan is doing, and that is Kenny Omega. Kenny, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. And yourself?
We're doing great, man. And listen, you are somebody that we've been wanting to talk to for a long time. So this is a pleasure finally getting you on Busted Open.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here finally. So, yeah,
Kenny,
hopefully have a good interview.
I hope so. A lot of pressure you're putting on me.
Long story short right here, Kenny, you're the reason me and Dave LaGreca actually got together and talking about doing this show together. It's a very, very long story. Not going to go into it, not take any of your time, but you were the catalyst for this happening based on your match with Okada. So thanks for hooking us up, buddy.
I mean, my absolute pleasure. I mean, the more intelligent wrestling podcasts we have out there, the better. So.
Oh, this is not a podcast.
Yeah,
this is a radio show.
This is SiriusXM. This is national radio.
My bad. Right, and they told me that too. Yes.
We're not doing this in Bully's basement, just so you know. No, but seriously, Bully's absolutely right, because we were texting back and forth about your match with Okada and at Wrestle Kingdom, and listen, we went back and forth, and it just, like the two of us together said, hey, you know what, we need to do a radio show together. But the point is that everybody was talking about that match last year. Everybody was talking about you. How did it feel last year when people were talking about you being in the best match since maybe Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair in 1989, and people talking about you being the wrestler of the year?
I mean, of course, it was a great feeling. I had always sort of aspired to be the guy that people would talk about. I always tried to bring forth a new and accessible style for the casual wrestling fan. So when you go about wrestling in a way that where you're trying to have matches that appeal to everyone, and by everyone I don't necessarily even mean wrestling fans, I mean regular people. Mm-hmm. To have people after one of your most challenging and demanding performances talk about your match, it's a great feeling. It's like, well, you know what, maybe me setting off on this journey to try this new thing was a good idea. Because it's easy to kind of fall into a genre. I'm a brawler, or I do lucha libre. I do European style or whatever. Or just I do the style that my company is known for. We are known for strong style in New Japan Pro Wrestling, generally speaking. But to kind of challenge the limits of that and to kind of go about wrestling in a different way was something that I always wanted to do and wanted to try to do in New Japan, especially because they have a lot more worldwide accessibility. And for that match, the biggest match of my career at that point, for that to be a success, I mean, that kind of catapulted my entire career. So I'm nothing but thankful to everyone that had watched the match and enjoyed the match and talked about the match, et cetera, et cetera.
Kenny, me and you spoke briefly at the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view in Las Vegas, and I had asked you about the two standout matches that you've had in the past 2 years. The first one against Okada and the most recent one with Chris Jericho. I had asked you your opinion on the matches. Can you please tell our listeners what were the differences in your mind between the two matches? How did you prepare for them? How did you go into them? And coming out of them, which one did you enjoy more than the other, and why?
Mm-hmm. So the match with Okada, this was sort of a culmination of years and years of work in Japan to try to become the guy, essentially. And after my run at the G1, which I was really proud of, I had a lot of great performances, back to back. But then to stay healthy and to kind of put it all on the line against the guy that pretty much has become the mascot of New Japan. He's the face of the company, and he's a young guy. He's good looking. He's athletic, and to kind of go toe to toe with him, athletically in the ring, technically, hold for hold, move for move, that type of performance. It was cool and it was great, and I tried to show my heart, I tried to show my passion, and at the end of the day, we had a 47 or so minute athletic contest, and I'm proud of it. I really enjoyed it. And how that varies from the match that I had with Chris was that story was told in a different manner, where it was two very established men, me more so in Japan, and Chris as a worldwide best of all time megastar. And these are two guys that hated each other, wanted to fight, wanted to draw blood. And that brought me to a place that I haven't been able to go to in Japan, just because that isn't really territory they delve into these days, especially. So to sort of create an atmosphere where two people hated each other, and when the bell rings, they're out to hurt one another and fight. For me, that was a new challenge. And not only that, but just the way that things came together, the story told beforehand, something really felt like it was on the line. And not so much the title that was actually on the line. It was more about, pride, a legacy. I really, looking back at it now, of course, I'm proud of both, but the type of feeling, the aura and the atmosphere that I was able to create with Chris, that is a style that I wish I could have all the time. Executing the story was fun. Executing the match, yeah, of course, there were athletic things in the match, but everything was designed to have a certain type of impact. We were trying to inflict pain on each other. It felt like an actual contest, an actual fight that could have ended at any point in time. And I think when I look back at it now, that's what I wish. Again, my matches could always be like that. I wish they always could be. So that being said, I really did enjoy probably my match with Chris Jericho better.
What was it like?
Whether the fans liked it more or not, I don't know. But for me personally, I loved how it came together. I loved the way it was executed. I loved the way that I felt while performing, and just the feeling of it all wrapping up. And I could have shed a tear because it was just so much hard work put into it from both of us, and it all went off without a hitch.
What was it like getting into the ring with Chris Jericho? I'm sure that's somebody that you watch plenty of times just as a fan. What was it like to get into the ring? And really that whole series that went on before that match, the press conference that took place and the back and forth. What was that whole situation like for you?
Again, this was me really stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit, because I've never went about my match and told a story that way. I've always wanted to, but I never had. You can't just do stuff like that. The stuff that I did with Chris with anybody, and he was just the perfect dance partner for it. So to tell the story in that manner, that was the part that was most nerve-wracking, because this is me getting my feet wet in something I've never done before. And when I saw that all of this stuff was working, when not only were the fans believing in it, but we as performers were believing in it. We felt it, We were really into everything we were doing and passionate about what we were doing. It really took any sort of nerves away when it came time to do the match. I wasn't worried whatsoever. And I had heard all of kind of the preconceived criticisms and all, this match is going to be, no good, and it'll be lucky if it hits 3 stars, Chris Jericho's over the hill, or Chris Jericho's going to have to carry a broomstick in this match, and yada, yada, yada. I didn't worry about any of that. I knew we were going to knock it out of the park, and it was just my time at the Tokyo Dome before the show was just all laughs, hanging out, having fun, and then when it was time to go, we got in the zone and we did it.
You talked about how you hoped fans enjoyed the match as well, and I think I can tell you for a fact, just by being on this show and listening to fans and, enjoying speaking with them, I think that they enjoyed the match with Chris a little bit more also because of the one word that you used that was different from the matches with Okada, and that was story. Because no matter how you look at wrestling, whenever there's a story involved, it always makes things more interesting. Styles make a fight. You and Chris have such different styles, and you told a great story. So that leads me to my next question. At Supercard of Honor for Ring of Honor, it's going to be you versus Cody. There is a story there with the Bullet Club and who is the leader of the Bullet Club. How do you look at the match coming up against Cody as compared to the match that you had with Okada and Chris? And do you feel you can steal the show with Cody?
I really do, yes. Again, this is a very different type of story. And for me, I love these challenges. I hate regurgitating ideas and stories as much as I can. I'm always going to want to create something new. And I think that's part of the key is to what makes a performer exciting to watch. Because, maybe people will have a really cool sequence that no matter how many times you watch it, it's gonna shock and awe you. But for me, nowadays especially, I think what is on the line, and like you said, the story, is what is more important than any of the moves that are shown in the match. Of course, I will try to use athletic maneuvers and such and such and such, but the story between Cody and myself, who is the rightful leader of the Bullet Club, Cody has been manipulating members from the sidelines. Cody has been trying to drive a wedge between myself and Ibushi, and even going as far as to use brandy in regards to that. So there are so many layers to it, and the hard part is when you have a group as large as the Bullet Club and someone trying to drive a complete wedge, and there's this struggle for power. It's like what parts of that do you nail in the match? What parts of that do you not address? Do you keep it just between two men? Is it going to be a gentleman's contest? Well, probably not. But how do you make things easy to understand for people that are just tuning in for this story? It's really tough. Best case scenario, everyone has watched New Japan, Ring of Honor, and all of the Being the Elite episodes. Then we're all caught up. But we always have to take into account that we're not going to get these types of people. There's going to be casual fans, people that have only seen this for the first time. And again, I want this sort of universal style where if they just walk into a building, they happen to see my match for the first time, I want them to understand, at least generally, what is on the line and enjoy what they're seeing. So I want to sort of reward our loyal fans that have kept up to date with this story, but also just have a generally good match with a great story that even the general fan can watch, which I think me and Cody can pull off.
Kenny, it's amazing. Listen to you talk. It's almost like you're a director. Like you're directing films. You want to make a film that's going to appeal to everyone.
We've sort of become that, yeah.
Yeah, and seriously, hearing you describe these matches, it's almost like I feel you're a director that directs movies.
It's funny you say that, but when we started to do the Being the Elite thing, it was that was a show that had evolved from doing Vines, like 7-second clips of little funny scenes that we had always had in mind. And we've sort of become like the Being the Elite cast, like myself, the Young Bucks, Cody, Marty. All of us have sort of found this new love in telling our stories that way, or at least using the show to aid in our storytelling. And once you do that and you sort of have a grasp for this new, different way of telling these stories, you can use that for everything in life. And then once you add the passion, the heart, the spirit, then it becomes something special and something that probably 98% of wrestling isn't. So, yeah.
Kenny, how did a Canadian wrestler become the biggest wrestler on the planet and one of the most talked about names without the WWE machine behind him?
That I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I think the digital age helped a lot. And I think that, there's sort of this, there was a moment in time when I really felt like pro wrestling was taking a huge backseat to mixed martial arts. And I think that things came full circle. And when they came full circle and pro wrestling kind of regained its popularity again within the general public, this is when the digital boom, the streaming boom, had sort of come into place. And it gave people the power to see wrestling from pretty much anywhere and everywhere. And a lot of people can't go to live events, whether it be their geographical location or just maybe they're in a great location, but, WWE isn't going to run there every day, they're not going to run there every weekend. And diehard fans, people that love wrestling and watching wrestling, they're going to want to get their fix. And now with everything just within one click away, they're able to see whatever they want. And I think, I mean, I really don't know, but I perhaps through word of mouth or whatever, somehow my matches just became a topic of conversation outside of what had happened in WWE. And I mean, I like I'd said to start this interview, I'd always wanted to be someone that people would look at as a sort of feature performer or someone that people looked forward to watching. And especially in the year 2016, when things started to really click for me, I've kind of opened up my heart a lot. And I'm telling these, whether people realize it or not, I'm sort of using things that have happened in my life to tell stories in the ring. And perhaps to be prone like that, whether you realize it or not, maybe there is a magnetism to it. I don't know. For me, this is just my own personal experience. There was a time in the early 2000s when I just was sort of disenchanted with everything in wrestling. And I started to watch like old Joshi pro wrestling, All Japan women's wrestling from the 90s. And it was their passion that reignited something within me. Yeah, like, you could see those moves anywhere, technically. You could see a power bomb, 2 blocks away from my house, at the local indie. But it was the emotion that went into it, that went behind it. Something was on the line. These people had something to prove. And it wasn't until about 2016 when I found that type of passion that conveys with people. And I suppose that, that combined with just, the great opponents, New Japan getting behind me, the ability to kind of speak my mind. I don't know. It's a culmination, I guess.
Well, Sunday, March 25th, once again, New Japan is live on Access TV. Strong Style Evolved. You have a big match coming up against the Young Bucks, you and Ibushi. And my last question is, what is it like to be with Ibushi one more time?
I mean, that was always the dream for me when I was in Japan. I had went to Japan in 2008 originally, and I sort of thought, okay, that's me crossing over, the one last thing on my bucket list. I wanted to go to Japan, and then, one thing leads to another, and then, okay, I want to go to Japan again. I want to be like a full-time member of a roster. And then sort of the next goal after that became, I want to be regarded as one of the best tag teams in the world with Ibushi. And I want to show that tag team wrestling can be more than just two great singles guys teaming up and doing moves. You know what I mean? There's an art to it. There's like a beauty to it. And I think that's been lost for a long time. And we only had we had a short tenure together, Ibushi and myself. and even some of our best matches kind of flew under the radar. But now that we are back in New Japan, here's this chance again to show what we're capable of. And we have a chance to show it against my best friends in wrestling and who I think are the greatest tag team in the world. One of the best tag teams of all time, easily.
Yep.
So I'm really excited for it. And this having a chance to do this match now, especially in America, it means a lot.
And again, that's Sunday, March 25th, live on Access TV, New Japan Strong Style Evolve. Kenny Omega. Kenny, thank you so much for the time, my friend. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Great job, man. Good to talk to you.
Thanks, man. See you soon.